Riding through mountains, forests, deserts, and cities for the last week or so, I'm in some flat plains again. This, of course, is something I'm very used to seeing where I'm from in Minnesota, so I just take it in stride. Something I'm not used to, however, are the espresso drive-thrus I'm seeing all over the state. At first it seemed coincidental, but then I noticed there are actually quite a lot of them around here.
I've seen them a million times now. In Oregon and Washington, they have these extremely small little cappuccino shacks. There's normally one of them coupled across the street from a gas station. It's seeing them everywhere.
One thing I didn't know about were bikini baristas, or sexpresso shops, where women serve coffee while wearing bikinis or lingerie. I'm a huge coffee drinker, but riding a motorcycle through drive-thrus and handling drinks are a losing battle I'd rather not fight. It's too bad. I feel like I missed out. So, the lands I'm coming up on, as well as the valleys around here, have extremely fertile soil. And this is no accident. As I'm riding down Washington State Route 26, imagine a wall of water some 200 yards high coming right at me from the north. At the end of the last ice age, I would have found one coming my way. You see, 15,000 to 13,000 years ago, in what is today's Washington State, several massive natural disasters called cataclysmic floods hit the region. The most recent one was just as the last ice age ended. Here's how it worked. At the end of the last ice age, North America had two major ice sheets on it, the Laurentide and Cordilleran ice sheets. The Cordilleran ice sheet held about 1.5 times the water held in Antarctica today. The planet began to warm as the climate changed and the ice sheet went through a process called deglaciation. The only problem with that is all this ice was melting, but the mountains left water no place to go, so it created a lake, and it kept rising. Over the mountains in the panhandle of Idaho and western Montana, a gigantic glacial lake formed called Lake Missoula. Lake Missoula had about as much water as Lake Huron has today. The lake rose and the glacier shrank until eventually the dam burst. The floods, which are known as glacial lake outbursts, were so large they're categorized as cataclysmic floods. Water drained out of Lake Missoula across the plains of eastern Washington. It's estimated that the flood held 13 times the water of the Amazon River, the largest river in the world by volume today. It would have been a wall of water that traveled at a top speed of 80 miles an hour as it ripped up forests, drowned wildlife, and according to archaeological estimates, it's entirely possible that the ancestors of Native Americans in the region would have been swept up as well. The cataclysmic floods even scoured the land of soil. As I said many times, the Palouse region where I'm headed is very fertile. The floods of the last deglaciation period are the cause of this. North of the Palouse region are the Scablands, a desolate, rocky region. This barren region, now void of soil, was scraped clean after several of these floods washed over the area. The soils of the barren Scablands were redistributed in the valleys south and downstream the Columbia River drainage basin before they reached the sea, where I crossed the bridge into Washington several episodes ago. Man, I have spent a lot of the season on Washington. Geological estimates figure a couple dozen cataclysmic floods washed through Washington since the last glacial maximum, while there can be uncounted amounts over the last 2 million years. The cycle of flooding and reformation of the lake would have lasted around 55 years. Today, 600,000 people live under the glacial lakes that would have formed from deglaciation, while 3 million live in the flood path of the Columbia drainage basin. Cities like Spokane, Portland, and Salem would be underwater. The transient lakes created downstream were about 225 meters in depth, or almost 250 yards. In Missoula, Montana, you'll find the ancient shorelines of Lake Missoula carved into the mountainside surrounding the city. They're most visible on the northwest side of the valley, where oncoming storms would have blown waves ashore against the mountainsides. As far away as the Willamette Valley, you'll find glacial boulders composed of rock from the Rocky Mountains washed up by the floods. All of these floods were long, long ago and have no chance of happening again in our lifetime. All we know about them is the evidence they left behind for geologists, including the soils left behind for Washington's farmers. Washington State Route 26 took me through a number of small, dusty farming communities. Once I reach the other side of the Washington Plains and enter the Palouse region, pay attention to how green the hills get. They're pretty stunning. It gives me a feeling or a sense of home for a place I've never been. Now in Pullman, I'll be spending a couple nights catching up with old friends before I finally dive eastward into the Rocky Mountains again.